Well, y'all, I am so honored to be here. My name is Jess Sims, and it is such a privilege to be surrounded by such incredible human beings. We've already started to talk before the camera started rolling, but this conversation is going to be great. We are here at DealBook, and this task force is called The Other Game, How Athletes Become Brands. So without further ado, we got Bomani Jones, host of The Right Time with Bomani Jones. We got Napheesa Collier, a.k.a. Fee, forward of the Minnesota Lynx and the co-founder, which we're going to talk about, of Unrivaled. We have Renee Montgomery, co-owner and vice president of the Atlanta Dream and two-time W.N.B.A. champion and birthday girl. Happy belated. It was yesterday.
Let's get it.
Right? We got Jesse Palmer, television host and entrepreneur. Jordan Chiles, gold medal winning Olympic gymnast. We got Justin Tuck, retired N.F.L. player and managing director in Goldman Sachs Private Wealth Management. And we've got Hope Solo, World Cup and Olympic champion and activist. So y'all, we're getting right into it, all right? Branding. When you hear the word brand or branding, I want you to think of one word or a phrase that immediately pops into your head. Bomani.
Money.
Fee.
Self.
Renee.
Authenticity.
You stole my word.
Come on, wait. I knew my answers off my sheet. Let's
Great
go.
minds think alike.
Jesse.
I feel like it's Price is Right. Now I have to come up with something different.
You do.
Yeah, I would say truth.
Oh.
Jordan.
Education.
Justin.
Opportunity. She stole mine, though.
Oh, wow. So there was a consensus on authenticity.
Go the other way this time.
That's a good theme.
Start with hope.
Right?
I was looking
My
at
initial and hope.
reaction was exhausting.
Oh, that is
Right.
real.
That's
Okay.
that's by far the best answer anybody gets.
100%. But Justin, okay, so you were going to say authenticity, but you also said opportunity. Now, you specifically, a lot of us here have already been thinking about what we wanted to do before retirement was even knocking at our door, right? And you specifically, that's part of your story. How are you able to stay so present as an NFL player while also planning for your future?
A lot of people ain't gonna like this answer, but playing football is very easy. All right, so I didn't find that to be challenging as much. I mean, obviously the talent level in which we play the game, but like just the X's and the O's around football was pretty easy. So like whenever I had some downtime or some down days, I just try my best to just go out and really, really navigate the world in New York City. And we obviously we're talking about branding, and I said opportunity. There's so much opportunity in this city to learn more about what's out there. What is the opportunity in the city? So like, most times under Coach Carlson, we would have Mondays off, or the evenings on Mondays off and Tuesdays off. Tuesday, I was trying to be in the city meeting with hedge fund managers, real estate agents, a person that might own 50, Wendy's or whatever it may be, because I grew up in a place where there wasn't a lot of opportunity, and I didn't necessarily get exposure to a lot of different things. So when I came to New York, I just looked at that as being an opportunity to be exposed to a lot of different things, especially given the brand that we had as football players in the city.
Just want to point out that Justin said football was easy because he played defensive end.
Well, I am
Let's
the only,
get it going.
I am the only person up here that played and started at 7 different positions and lined up at 11 different positions in my time in the NFL.
Justin never had to
11.
read a coverage or throw hot.
Gentlemen, it's the first 5 minutes. You couldn't.
I like it. Can I pitch in here?
Yeah, Jordan,
I would like
please
to
interject.
I mean, I had a sack at left end, right end, left tackle, right tackle,
Hey, man, I believe
outside
you.
linebacker, safety.
Get
We
quarterback.
pitch in
believed
here?
you, brother. We did.
Jordan's got her hand raised. You go, girl.
I would like to say I appreciate that you say that football is easy, because every football player and as a gymnast, they tell me that gymnastics is not hard and that football is hard.
Can I use certain
I
language?
appreciate
Nah, that's crazy.
I appreciate you saying that, but to go off of what he was saying about the opportunity, as a gymnast, we do have opportunities within our sport. It's a little different. We don't get to just wake up as NFL or NBA players and just go do our stuff. We actually have to educate ourselves, and that's why I said education, because as a brand, you have to educate yourself and you learn things throughout your lifetime of who you are trying to be. So with gymnastics, that's something that I was able to, focus on and educate myself what it's like to, one, we do flip on a 4-inch piece of wood. That's education itself.
Wow.
Sure is.
Like trying to navigate, trying to, which direction, this, that, and the other. So I definitely would say, the opportunity is always going to be there, but that's why I said education, because it's something that you get to educate yourself. Not only the younger generation gets to see you branding yourself or branding whatever you're trying to do, but also you're learning yourself as well. And that's I was going to say the authenticity as well. And once you said, I was like, man, I gotta find a new word. But I think that all goes into play with, every single word that we did say goes into branding.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I was curious to kind of hear everybody else's perspective on this too. I think sometimes when we all get done as athletes, you're obviously stepping out of your comfort zone into the next realm or facet of your life and what you're going to be doing. I always felt like one of the biggest challenges was trying to find the next thing that gave you the rush that you had when you were a player. I feel like as a player sometimes that feeling of competing and being out in front of people, millions of people at home watching, there's a performative aspect to that. And I think oftentimes for athletes, it's really, really difficult to simulate that in the quote unquote real world once you get done. And I think when we talk about branding and what the next step is and what we want to become when we're finished, have you guys ever felt a challenge trying to replicate?
He's still in it. I mean, V is still competing at a high level. I would say for me, my journey's a little bit different because I went from 1 year I was a player to the very next year I'm a team owner. So competition still
First player ever.
Thank you, Jess. Come on, do your homework, Jess. But I feel like the competition in the sports world is still the same, and it's actually moving faster. Being in the W.N.B.A. right now, I'm sure everybody has seen that it's exploding. Like every team, I call it the coaching draft this year. There were seven. There were 7 teams that had to get new coaches this year. There were new GMs happening this year. It's an explosion. Everybody's asking like, why is there so much change happening in the W.N.B.A. right now? But that's what always happens when a business is leveling up. Like that's what always happens when a business goes from one, let's say, level to another one. Everybody, you don't want to be left behind. And it's not necessarily the coaches. The coaches are just an aspect of it, but it really is the league as a whole. The business side is booming. Like we're doubling the amount of employees. We're doubling the amount of everything because the resources are going up everywhere. So I think like I'm still in a very competitive space. Like sports is always going to be competitive. Like, did we win this year? No. Did we sell out 20 of 20 games? All right, we got a little dub then. All right, we gonna pop a little bit of bottles then. But I do think that thing that you're talking about, that search, I don't know. It's interesting because it's like I'm a little bit psycho and I'm just competing at all times for. You start to compete about things that ain't even competitive then when you get to certain things. But I do know what you're talking about.
I was going to say, I feel like as athletes, like you get that rush from the competitiveness. I get that rush more on away games. Like when we score, we can silence the crowd than I do at home games, like when I'm scoring. And so I'm still playing, like you said, but I also get that rush through Unrivaled. Like every time I get a brand deal, it feels like I won.
That's what I'm talking about.
Rush. So I think like, I don't know how you guys feel, but I get that rush when I win at something. So even whenever I'm done playing basketball, whatever field I'm in, I'm going to be super competitive in it. And I'll get that rush whenever I accomplish something.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like you get a big deal. Y'all not turning up. Like y'all not like excited when you hit that. Come on, you managing money. You're not excited when you.
Yeah, but to your point, I think for me it's about I acknowledge the excitement, but it's also like the risk factor, like not knowing what's around the corner. Like in football, it's obviously a lot of things as far as like not knowing what the play is going to be and how to react and respond to it. Yeah. But it's the same thing in finance where it's like not knowing. Like I have clients who call me out of the blue when that phone rings and I pick it up. I have no idea what they're going to ask me about. I got to be prepared. I got to have my T's crossed, my I's dotted. I don't know what the market is going to do. Everyone thinks that because we're in the business, we just have this crystal ball of saying, hey, Fortune 500 is going to go up 6% this year. We have no idea. We have educated guesses, but we have no idea. So like that rush is important to me. But I just want to go back to something because we didn't pause on this. I've heard of player coaches. I've heard of elite player. I've never heard of player owner. We just skimmed right over that.
Well, I tried to.
I heard you do a mention.
First ever.
Player owner.
Yeah, owner exec, because shouts to Lisa Leslie, she was the first player turned owner. But I think owner exec, the thing for me was like being a part of the front office, because there's ownership and then there's like, what are we doing to market our players? You know, like there's different levels. And so for the Dream, I felt like as a player, they would post stuff of us and it's like, this is trash. I'm not reposting this and it was of myself, you know? So I wanted to we wanted as a whole group, because it's not even just me, Suzanne and Larry, we wanted the players to be like, yo, we love our content. We love what y'all are doing. We love playing here. A lot of people in the W.N.B.A. had a certain mindset about Atlanta. It's like we had the city where a lot of athletes live, but we can't get free agents. Like, what is going on? Like, everybody loves the city of Atlanta, but we couldn't get free agents. So that was my main thought of, like, we are a destination. Like, we got to be that. But the owner, exec, I have to give it to my wife, because when she first told me, why don't you buy the team? I was like, baby, what you talking about? Like, what money?
So it was never even a thought before your wife brought it up?
No, it was, I mean, kind of, because if everybody knows the story, it started to get very tumultuous with our previous ownership. And so everybody was kind of whispering that, like, there might be a ownership change. And I'm thinking, like, well, I hope somebody good comes in. And then that's kind of when LeBron sent the tweet, and I shot my shot, like, I'm ready when you are, boss. And, you know, that's the rest was history. But I think it was just, that's why I think the circle around me has given me nuggets my whole life about, like, why don't you do this? And then I start to think about it, and I'm like, why don't I do this? And so, yeah, no, I can't take credit for that. It was not a thought process at all. I thought I'd be in entertainment, but here we are.
Well, so it's interesting when you think of the health of an athlete, obviously hydration, food, recovery, sleep, all this good stuff, but you don't automatically think social network, the people that are around you. How important is that network around you as you are not just building your brand, but then evolving into new spaces?
It's very important. I just have to say, man, as many circles I've gone through and left, I would say the biggest thing is, like how you're saying with the health part of it, I think having the right support system. My circle is literally the size of, like, I can't even say a pea, but I can't, because, like, it's smaller than that. And I think just understanding that the people that you have within your, you know, your circle, your relationships, whether it's family, friends, you know, cousins, uncles, however it is, your own coaches, understanding that those people can uplift you is a little easier for you. And that is where that health does come into play. Yes, we can drink water. Yes, we can, you know, go have a salad here and there, whatever it is, go eat a cookie. But knowing that you have that support system sitting on your shoulder can give you a better understanding of what your dream is. For me, I went through a crazy coach situation. Back in 2018, I was verbally and emotionally abused. And not mentally being okay, that's health, right? You go through trauma, you go through a lot of things. I basically, how I explained my life during that time frame is being in a box that is completely black, and every single time you think you find the light, it disappears.
Wow.
And during that time frame, I couldn't figure out anything. I thought, gymnastics wasn't for me. I thought the people in that circle didn't want me. There was just a lot of things, but when I finally found those bright people in my circle, I got better, and I was feeling healthier, and I was feeling, the importance of what it's like to actually have a good support system. And to understand that goes back to what you were saying about, you never thought of becoming an owner. Like, first off, that's crazy in itself. Like, that's crazy for you to play pro for 1 year and then being like, you know what, I'm just gonna go own.
Well, I played for 11 years, but
well, 11 years, that's so crazy. Like, first off, I don't know how W.N.B.A. do what they do. I say W.N.B.A. is harder than gymnastics, personally. That's how I think of it.
Disagree.
No, that's what I'm gonna say. But it goes back to how you were saying that you never thought of becoming an owner, right? Until somebody nudged you to do that. And I think having those people constantly nudging you and constantly doing those things, it brings you more health into your life, and you're at ease, and it's easier. So I definitely can say, like, having the right support system is, like, the biggest thing that you can really just rely on.
I think it's important too that people that in your circle are genuinely behind you and happy for your success, which I think as athletes sometimes isn't always the case. I think sometimes you have teammates that high five you after you score, and they're excited about that. But when you sign your new contract, they're upset, and they're talking behind your back. And Justin and I played in locker rooms in the past where we kind of experienced a little bit of that as well. And I think that support group is obviously really important personally. And I think in business, it's important as well. It's like picking your teammates or trying to find a system offensively that you feel like you fit in, that you can thrive in. When I started my apparel brand, J. Palmer, I was so new to the sports apparel space. I had no idea what I was doing, but what was really important was finding the right people to partner with that have done it before, that knew the answers, that could really sort of hold your hand through everything. And so, with 05 that have done that before with other people and created apparel, and then with Fanatics that has the licensing deals with the N.F.L. I mean, that was paramount. So it is really important, that support group, what you're talking about, personally, obviously, and also I think whenever we're stepping into entrepreneurial stuff or into business, it's really, really important as well.
Do everyone think of it as a circle, though? I never really thought of it as a circle. I always thought of it as like rings.
Oh.
And by that, just bigger circles. Like, obviously, you have your inner circle that should be the size of a pea or smaller. But, like, I think everyone here is so faceted that I always thought of my circle as being, all right, for something, for one thing, I have a circle. For another thing, I have a circle. Or I have a really close circle, and then, like, I have a circle that's just outside of that ironclad, brother or person. And then outside of that, it's like, okay, well, these people are just my business contacts. And then outside of that, it's just like we're acquaintances. But like the circles, I think, are should look and feel like you are, as far as how all of us are multifaceted. I think our circles should be multifaceted. That's how I've always kind of thought about it.
Yeah, Fee, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, my word was community, but I feel like it's the same as you said. I think of community in like neighborhoods. So like you have the people you live in direct vicinity with, like your next door neighbors. So I feel like I was thinking the same thing, just with different words. It's the same though, like my family is my immediate circle, and then my teammates are like maybe a little bit around that, or you have a best friend with one of your teammates, and then it gets bigger and bigger as you grow. So I was kind of thinking the same.
Yeah, I look at it like inside out. You know how like there's that group inside, there's like anger, joy, and stuff. But I look at that group is like my core group, and my core group touches every aspect of what I'm doing. But to your point, I have a different group, like clothing line. My C-Suite 21 has one group. I'm with W.N.B.A, so that's a whole different group. But my core group is the one corresponding with that group. So I feel like I do have that pea size. They touch everything, but then I feel like there's other.
It's like concentric circles on
yeah,
the side.
yeah, exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah. Hope, you were gonna say something?
I was thinking.
Not necessarily. I mean, you guys have my thoughts going every which direction. It's a great conversation. I think most importantly, I want to take my hat off to many of you here who are able to be entrepreneurs, who are able to basically be a full-time athlete, professional athlete, many of us, and also a full-time social media presence. And I know it was never for me. It was exhausting. We talk about trust and having this core group of people around you. But then there's this other sense of opening yourself up to the world through social media. And my whole story is a little bit different because when social media really started coming into play during our World Cup and Olympics, we looked at it as toxic. It was a distraction. Players cared more about what fans would say about them prior to the game, after the game. They'd spend more times on their phone than actually interacting with your teammates. So we came from this really different timeline where we didn't appreciate it. And so thinking about building a brand, for me, it wasn't there. I guess you're always building a brand in essence, but for me, it was about winning. I was a straight athlete. I had my blinders on from a very young age. I wanted to play in the World Cup. I wanted to play in the Olympics. I wanted to win every award I could win and be the best goalkeeper I could be. And I wanted our defense to be better, and it was always working to be better on the field. Also at that time, as women athletes, our national team was looked at as the girls next door and the ponytail posse.
Oh, wow.
And I was competitive. I was hardcore. That was my brand. I wanted to win. At any cost, I wanted to win. But I didn't play like the games, the social media. I didn't do any of that. And so at some point, I had my agents, I had everybody telling me to go on Dancing with the Stars, to do all these things I didn't want to do. I had so much anxiety and so much other things to take care of outside of the sport that I didn't see the benefits of it. So then I realized, well, shoot, I'm not making enough money just playing soccer, so I better get into it. I better figure out how this works. And I still didn't like it. I didn't have the energy for it. I felt like I was opening myself up to everybody. It isn't really until right about now, 10 years removed from the game, where I see the benefits in my branding, and I am excited, and I can roll with it, and there's good opportunities, but it took a very long time. And I think it took so long because I wasn't always able to tell my story. It was traditional media coming up with headlines, saying Hope's solo's outspoken, or she's this, or she's that. And so what's amazing is now I appreciate social media because we as athletes can take control of our own stories. And I never understood that. I just was trying to do my job, hardcore athlete, get the job done. And now I'm actually seeing the benefits. So I'm learning, you say education, I am learning from all of you guys all of the time. And it wasn't really until my Netflix series came out. It's called Solo versus U.S. Soccer. I was the first female athlete to sue their employer for equal pay. And when you talk about getting that feeling like you're playing in a stadium World Cup final, the only time I've ever had it was when I was fighting passionately for equal pay.
Wow.
And I realized when my passion for fighting for equal pay was bigger than my passion to play soccer, I knew I was done with playing soccer.
Wow.
But anyways, when the Netflix documentary came out, I cried for 3 days. I saw it first before it aired. I called my manager. I was so scared for it to come out. I was bawling for 3 days. And then it came out. And to see people's reception towards it after I was vulnerable and I opened myself up, I couldn't believe the amount of support that I had. And so I guess that's a long way of saying I'm starting to really reap and see the benefits of putting myself out there more.
Love that.
That sounds
great.
like authentic.
Yeah.
Right, I know, right?
Sounds very
I'm getting a little teary-eyed over here.
And that's so beautiful, Hope, as I watched the documentary, as I told you before we came in here, and your vulnerability was beautiful. And as a longtime follower of you and fan of you, I was like, wow, this is a whole different side of Hope that I've never seen before. So I'm so excited for your future and your branding and your evolving. But speaking of the social media aspect of it, I'm so happy that you said exhausting because it can be. 100% it can be. And Bomani, I wanted to ask you, as someone who's been in traditional media, new media, everywhere for over 20 years, you've been covering sports, culture, politics, everything. What have you been seeing?
All right, so I was about to say, my athletic career ended in 1994. I didn't know what in the world I was going to be able to do to make this go. Social media, the thing for me with social media was I was an early adopter and figured out very quickly how it worked. And a significant portion of what I have personally or professionally is a result of me being able to figure out how to manipulate social media to get people to see the work that I did, because I knew how to speak specifically in the cadence of that space, right? And I could do that, and I did a bunch of different things, so I was able to pull it off. So my perspective on it is informed very much so as a user and to a degree as an observer with like some sort of profile and the idea of branding, because people in journalism at this point have to establish themselves as brands, and you have to figure out what you're going to do. The thing that I have found interesting about the evolution of social media is that what was very attractive about it, I think, to people in the first place was you got your opportunity to see famous people act like regular people. And then as the time went on further, it became a place for regular people to act like they were famous, right? No matter, like, whatever little room you get. Like, if you think about this, if you're a person who has 5,000 followers on a platform, we don't think about that as meaning anything, really. It's not something you can really make money on. But the idea that 5,000 people care about what you have to say, that's a lot of people, right? Like, whoever would have thought that? How many of those 5,000 are real? That's not the point, is it, right? So all those spaces then started to take on a different level of seriousness in the ways that people use them. Like the days that, as soon as businesses started putting statements out using social media, it couldn't really ever be a truly natural space again, because it became a language of corporations, even if people don't think that is what they were doing. Like, you started seeing regular people putting out Happy Veterans Day posts. They ain't thinking about no veterans, but that's what you do if you're a business. You say Happy Veterans Day. You say Happy Columbus Day. You do whatever these things are. And so regular people began to kick it like that. So what do you think then happens if you are somebody with a legitimate profile, right? You are a professional athlete. You are an actual real live celebrity. It becomes a permanent branding game. But see, what then changes, what I think is most interesting in the evolution of the change, is it starts so much younger. And high schoolers, and if we're being honest, middle schoolers have this sort of established branding and presence, or at least what people think is branding. Because one thing we haven't done in this discussion is talk about like what different people mean different things when they say branding. Like I hear Justin talking about meeting with the hedge fund managers. That's leveraging the level of celebrity you have, but it's not because of like Justin Tuck Inc., right? And when Jesse talks about the different things, like what you were able to pull off from The Bachelor and then turn that into a clothing line and all of that stuff, like I think a lot of times we mean different things about how you leverage whatever the publicity is that you've got. But a brand fundamentally, when you say authenticity and all that, fundamentally, a brand has to say something when people see it. Right? You know what this means when this thing comes up. It's the Frank Lucas speech about Blue Magic and American Gangster, right? Like it means the same thing as General Mills or anything else. When I see this, oh, this is what I think about. Boom. It's being adopted so much younger, where what becomes interesting to me to watch about the ways that people position themselves is the safe play is what people think is the Michael Jordan play, which is to not really say anything interesting. That only worked because Michael Jordan's the coolest dude in the world. He didn't have to say anything, right? Charles Barkley and Deion Sanders are the market in place, because whether you liked it or not, what they said was very clear. It felt like something when people saw it. And 40 years later with Charles, 35 years later with Deion, Deion's the greatest marketing success, branding success of all time. And it's not about whether you like him. It's about whether you know him, you see it, and you know what it is. But I think the ways that people are approaching this is to try to make the safe play and don't get in no trouble and don't mess up what all the stuff is that you had. And so people kind of turtle back and just post a bunch of stuff that is entirely inauthentic, because this is what it all is supposed to look like. So to me, that the biggest change that we have is, I find in watching athletes that athletes are less interesting from a distance than ever. Because
did he just call us boring? I'm just
no. No, but you think about how it proceeds and who different people are. I said from a distance.
I know.
You know, but from a distance, people are afraid to give you anything. And I get why they are. But as that happens, it doesn't seem like it's that much fun for anybody involved. It's just an attempt at a money play that very often is for money that doesn't ever come.
I think it's the opposite. I think you get more money by being really politically correct. Like, because if you are really controversial, only very like certain brands that are aligned with what your controversy is will align with you. So if you are more like generic, like you said, then you can get more deals through more people.
I guess, and I think that's certainly a fair point, but I think I'm speaking less about being controversial. Like, I'm not saying you're going to get a bunch of deals being Colin Kaepernick, right? Like, you're not going to be out here selling Cool Whip and taking a knee at the same time. No, that's not going to happen. But I think giving people something to hold on to, something to differentiate yourself, something that creates a feeling rather than simply an alignment. I have a hard time believing that is in long term, that won't be an effective play.
It's tough because of social media, I think, too.
Yeah.
Like that same social media that you're talking about, think about when you do make a statement, like, and especially, I mean, we're in the W.N.B.A. space, so I know that I've seen people online say that when they're fans of men's sports and when they're fans of women's sports, some things get, let's say, taken differently. But kind of to Fee's point, it's like everybody ain't able to speak their mind and have a brand still back you. A lot of times brands don't even want, like, we have a couple NFL players here, but there's a lot of brands that will support the NFL, support the NBA, and are not sponsors of the WNBA. Like, even if you take it to our city of Atlanta, there's multiple companies that have a deal with the Falcons, the Hawks, Atlanta United, you name it, the Braves, but they don't have a deal with us. We're the only team in the city they don't have a deal with. Now imagine you take that, we already don't have a deal, and now you have an outspoken player What do you think will happen?
Oh, no, I get you. I get you. But that's the change, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that we are definitely a less conservative society than we were 40 years ago. But in terms of what we're talking about, you had more room for individuality 40 years ago than you have
And to
now.
that
And that's
point,
a
though,
wild change.
Being a sneakerhead, like, so there are ways to differentiate. If you're talking about like, hey, I'm a sneakerhead, like I'm about to show y'all my sneaker collection, that by all means. But when you talk about Charles Barkley and Deion Sanders, they're not differentiating themselves by just being like a sneakerhead. Charles Barkley says whatever he wants to say.
100.
Everybody ain't able. Like, I'm just like, that's a luxury actually
It
that
is.
you're
But
discussing.
it's interesting because I feel like there are so many copycats out there that feel like they have to try to be Charles Barkley to keep their job on air. I mean,
Right.
At ESPN, I feel like there are a lot of people out there on TV right now, especially talking about sports, and they're yelling and they're arguing at people and they're screaming at them, and they don't even believe what they're saying.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Charles is the most unique figure. You're correct. We cannot use Charles as the
Yeah,
myth.
let's take
That's
him out
not,
of
no,
that.
no, that is
He
not
was
my
like,
point.
everybody
Yeah.
looked at him
Yeah,
and
my
like,
point,
I need to do that.
Yeah, my point is not that you could be Charles Barkley. My point is that the change has come in that it paid more to take some chances at a different point in time.
I mean, bro, can we go
No,
ahead?
you can go.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm just gonna throw two names out there and just polar opposites, but they've won in their own brand. Like, think about Steph Curry. He seems to be more conservative, more direct, but still has his brand and like a phenomenal player. But like, I guess controversy, Jake Paul, like. Is that the outliers? The outliers that you're talking about? As far as like on one side, they're both making a ton of money on branding, marketing, et cetera, but
Jake is like Floyd Mayweather in the sense that you can be a jerk if you sell your own stuff.
Ooh.
You know, like Floyd was charging you, come watch somebody try to beat me up like you want to try to beat me up. The greatest unstoppable brand. I don't need no endorsements. There's a million reasons why you shouldn't endorse them, everything else. But when you're going direct to consumer in that way, it's a little different. And I do wonder with Jake Paul, who I have trouble thinking of as an athlete, he just boxes people for money. You know what I mean? And so I think he's playing, I think he gets to play a different game. But I think what we're saying, though, we've seen this all, it is what is most different is that people are prepared to be pitchmen much sooner. And to prepare to be a pitchman is a very safe play to make.
I also kind of think like the allowance for that for like men and women is also very different because you have no people like Charles or Stephen A. or like those people on the women's side who are allowed to be that controversial. And like we have areas that we can be different in, but they're like small areas. Like you can't be too different or you can't be too, we just don't have the same like allowance as the men's side.
I think that is absolutely true.
And something I'm thinking about still when you first started talking, Bomani, was about brand. Knowing what a brand is and who a brand is doesn't necessarily mean success and vice versa.
Right.
Right.
Like I'm still trying to like grapple with this a little bit because it's like I'm thinking about a brand, like everyone knows McDonald's. It doesn't mean that all of us eat at McDonald's every day, but like, or I might never have it the rest of my life. But is it a very, very well-known brand? Yes. Will it be successful? Probably. But does that equate?
Yeah. But you associate, when you hear McDonald's, you got something that hits you. It may be that. It may be how you used to love the fries. It may
Childhood
be
memory, like emotion.
Right, stopping on
The
trips
Happy
and
Meal.
the coach go get the bags full of quarter pounders. Like
Still
you
the
got
best
something
fries.
that you think
The
about
toys
when you
and
think
Happy
about McDonald's. And that's my thing is that like if you're really talking about having a brand, you're giving people something that they think about this. Like, so if you're Steph Curry, you're so excellent. Your brand is I am excellent, right? And when you think about him, you think about excellence. If you're not at that level, you're probably going to need to give somebody something. You might get some money because you're like a ball player, but I don't think that's the same thing as having a brand.
No, I mean, that's
if
a
you
good
don't mean
point.
something, it ain't, to me, it's not a brand.
That's a good point because I think the better you are at whatever you do, the less you have to worry about branding.
Yeah.
Like,
I disagree.
What do you
Our best players are not our most popular players.
no, but I mean, okay, so let's just take, like, I'm not going to use W.N.B.A. players for the allowance of that, but let's just say LeBron James. Like, if I go to a company and say, hey, I have LeBron James here, NBA 2K, what you want to do? I don't have to sell them on the concept, the idea. They're going to pitch me on 100 ideas they have with LeBron. Now, let's say I take your favorite W.N.B.A. player then and say, hey, I have this person right here. Oh, how are we going to figure out how to, so I'm doing the levels of women, but also when you're great, people will figure out how to work with you when you're branding and really having to get creative, sometimes it's because you're having to try to get attention. Like branding stunts, marketing stunts are because you're trying to capture attention. If you're already a superstar, you don't have to do any stunts. Your branding might be like, I just saw the Joker put out his shoes and it's a Joker symbol type thing. And it's like,
Right.
I get it. He's the Joker. It's like, I don't need nothing else. Like, okay, that's the Joker's branding. I don't know anything else about his branding. And it's with Nike. I saw the whole rollout, but I don't need to know anything else.
But
This is the Joker.
Do you think celebrities can dilute their brands though if it's not necessarily authentic and they're just grabbing
Absolutely.
Yes.
like Shaq
100%.
and Snoop
Oh, no.
everything?
Right.
And it's like literally everything. I don't know what their brand. Like I know they're
I wouldn't
famous.
use- I
and
wouldn't
I know they
use
have a lot
those
of
two.
money.
So,
But it's like,
brands
but it's
is
like
I wouldn't
they
use. I mean,
literally-
I
it's like-
hear what you're saying, Jesse, but I wouldn't use those two.
no, but you
Like,
know, though,
I agree with you. They do everything and a lot of things. but,
Everything.
Like
Snoop Dogg
It's
was
worked.
the face of the Olympics.
Yeah.
it's
And
I
worked.
did
Yeah,
just
not
see
even
Shaq in my
happening.
Houston mall.
It's worked.
but I think
Like,
You're
Bo,
on a
not to cut
campaign.
you off,
I
Bo,
was
but when
like-
you said the biggest marketing person, I forget how you phrased it, but you said Dion. The first thing that came to my head was Snoop. Like, think
Yeah.
about Snoop. Snoop created Dogfather,
it's a lot going on,
Yeah.
right?
and now he's the
Yeah.
face of the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like that. That's
yeah.
is
Like
there
my
any-
only thing there was
but-
like he coaches youth football.
Yeah, his
That's
whole-
the only
yeah.
like thing I have with sports. Like I'm like, okay.
Like think about this. Think about this. Think about the
Hey,
movie Snoop did.
Snoop was
that
the
was just
uncle of
like
the
I couldn't show it to
Olympics.
my kids because of the language. But then he's like Martha Stewart's best friend.
It
Like,
makes no. It makes.
Well,
It makes
think
no
about
sense.
Martha
What's the
Stewart's
bear?
branding.
The
First of
bear?
all,
The moral of the story is everybody loves the G-Funk. That is what it fundamentally comes down to is everybody loves the G-Funk. You can't, no matter how deep in the country you went in 1994, everybody loved the
But like,
G-Funk.
did you see the commercial with Snoop and Warren G?
I know,
Selling,
that's what I'm saying.
Fire pits.
yeah.
That's
And Snoop was basically telling the consumer the only reason why I'm on here is because I'm Snoop. Why am I selling? He's basically telling you why am I selling fire pits? I'm Snoop.
Yeah.
Why are you gonna buy them?
But also, their first campaign was Snoop
That's
announcing
crazy.
that he's no longer
Crazy.
smoking. I thought that's how
That
they.
was hilarious.
I thought
That
that's
was
how
their thing.
they launched that.
That
By
was
the
their
way,
thing.
by his brand.
Yeah.
So speaking of Snoop's branding, there is one thing we do all know about Snoop.
That is correct.
There's one
Yeah.
thing
Yep.
that we all know about Snoop Doggy Dog. He has made that a brand within itself too, because that's why they got him. The whole announcement, it went viral. It was, all the clicks, all the things, just by him saying, "Hey guys, I'm stopping smoking. I'm going smokeless." I think that's what that
Yeah.
Yeah, smokeless.
Yeah.
that's a brand though.
But Shaq's brand is different, and you notice Shaq couldn't sell shoes. Big men do not sell shoes, so he had the big Reebok deal or whatever. He had a hard time with that. Stuff that requires you to be cool like that doesn't so much work. Shaq sells stuff that it ain't designed that regular people need.
The general.
The general. His shoes are like in like that. I don't
Got a
want to say the
giant
exact
couch
store. But
now at Rooms to Go.
yeah. It's like he's
Big
but
man couch.
he is selling stuff to like it's hard to think of the right ways to put it without being rude. You know what I mean? But he is selling his stuff to regular people.
Yeah.
And that is what is so interesting about him is that for him it doesn't really dilute the brand.
No.
He is telling people who might have to deal with some shady people from time to time to get some business done. No, it's okay. They cool. Because the general, that does not sound like a trustworthy brand. I'm assuming that if Shaq says it's cool, it's cool.
But I feel
I would not want to get my insurance for the general.
Part of the magic about Shaq though and Snoop, I think, is that what we're talking about, they're approachable to so many different people. You're not just basketball fans that are excited about Shaq and what he's doing. That there's something to be said for. I think in our branding is the demographics, the target audiences, and just different groups of people and different types of fans.
I mean,
that,
there's an
that
ultimate,
that relate to you.
Yeah.
there's an ultimate brander now, and I would say Kai. I don't know if anybody heard, like his Mafia-thon, like
Yeah.
that touched athletes, that touched entertainers, that
over.
touched singers. I think that the new age influencer is kind of doing what kind of that thing is where they're crossing whole platforms, different countries. Direct to consumer, though, I think is that thing that you're talking about where there's no better branding than when you can get direct to your consumer. I think that's where artists are trying to go. Athletes with the podcast. I think that like now the new age, kind of what you're talking about too, Hope, you can talk straight to your consumer now. You can tell them, hey, my brand is blank. Like I'm comfort. I like to be comfort all the time. So that's what I'm going to be. Like you can tell them and then almost build that brand. Before, you'd have to have like an interview person come to you, ask the right questions, and then trust that they write exactly what you really are, because they might even took your answers, mix it with a little bit of their bias, and it's like that's not really my brand.
I think what
You
makes
might have showed up also in a way that you didn't recognize, and you did it to yourself.
It's true. Okay.
You just throwing it out there.
it's crazy to me too, because I think, you know, part of what makes athletes and people likable, approachable, I think, is obviously access. And you were talking about that earlier. I feel the same way you do. I'm a very private person by nature, and I just don't want to share a lot of my private life more than I need to. But I wonder in the sports arena now.
Jesse, you did The Bachelor.
That's true.
Wait,
I know you
took
took
that out of my mouth. I was about to be like,
so
That
like
don't- that
making
don't
out in
sound-
a
that
hot
don't
tub
sound
with 6
private.
women on national television is not? You think that's right?
I appreciate it.
This is vodka, by the
Jason
way.
Kidd.
So,
Jason Kidd, the
but you know,
Kenyan morning. That was an alley. I appreciate
like-
the loop.
Do you think like it's going to become more normal in sports to allow like Antonio Brown to be on his phone during Mike Tomlin's like post-game winning speech? Like
That's a
when we
great
played,
question.
if you
That's not
I don't think
healthy,
we even
though. I don't
had
think
like
that's healthy.
phones like that. But if like
yeah.
we would have gotten fined so quickly.
Fine, you might not have had a job.
Hold
Bro,
on.
you would have been cut.
It is wildly unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
But I think we are starting to see some measure of generational compromise to work around the fact that, hey, if they're all like this, it's kind of hard to change them,
Can't
right?
fight it then.
Right. And so maybe to a degree, it's going to happen, but that's not a win for anybody.
Agreed.
That is
Because
best
you know
way
where it's
put
going to
it.
go now. It's not just going to be locker room post game. It's going to be you get subbed out of a game and you're on the sidelines and you go, "Hey guys, guy just finished like a 6-point run. I just hit a 3.
Yeah.
That was crazy. You know, we're still down.
feels
We got
like
about
the
10
Black
left.
Mirror.
We got to go out and play defense. Okay, and it's like check back in. And imagine like got a penalty kick coming up. We got to stop. This thing's going to golden goal. Like it's going that way now.
Yeah.
And the access and what athletes are wanting and obviously up management, all that kind of stuff, they're not going to want it to happen. But the boundaries are always changing. It's just the landscape is changing so quickly.
Well, I do also think the only reason why some of these things are changing is because the powers that be, not, you know, obviously it's 32 owners. Not all of them are going to have those views as they become younger, as different, like Cuban coming into the NBA really put a ripple into how ownership think about their relationships with players, right? You're an owner, right? You probably look at that list of owners and you're completely different from a viewpoint, from how you think about where this league should go, et cetera, et cetera. Over the course of a couple more years, there are going to be more people that have more of your thought process than the older guard. So I think that might lead itself to exactly what you're saying, as far as like they'll be more lenient to allow some of these things. Because think about it, right?
Crazy.
At some point, right? These owners are very old. There's going to be a changing of the guard in some regard. It ain't going to happen overnight. But as you mentioned, I do think there's going to be a time where how we interacted with media, how we played the game, and what was access and non-access will be completely different. And again, I don't think it's going to happen in a term where it's going to be like, okay, we switch the lights over and it's there. I just feel like it's going to casually happen over time. And then we're going to look back at this conversation 10 years back and be like, yeah, it actually happened. But I don't think it's going to happen in such a pace in which it's going to feel like it was pressed upon us.
That's funny because I don't like social media. Like listening to you guys, this whole like
I'm so sour on it too.
Like I personally don't like social media. Like it's not, I know, like you guys, it's a brand now. It's something that, you have all these brand deals coming in and you have to post on social media. You have to go to Instagram. You have to add brand partnership. You have all these rules. Like one, can I just post the thing if I have to post it? Like there's so many things that go into play, but at the same time, just as an athlete and as we're growing, it's something that I feel like more and more, like you were saying, more and more time of where people don't get to see the real you. And it's getting pushed and pushed and pushed because it's like you are doing these things on social media and then you see them in person and it's like, well, why are you putting on a face on social media when in reality you're totally opposite? But then you try to be your normal self, you're getting looked at and it's like, well, what happened to you? What's going on? So social media was never something I liked. Like what I put on social media, that's truly me. What you see on the post that I post or I'm doing flips and all that, that's something that you're going to see in person. But that's also when it comes to what I'm getting coming in as, you know, whether it's money, whether it's a sponsorship, I look at those before I accept. I look at it as if it, you know, they are in my branding of who I am as a person. Because I'm not going to go be like, okay, I'm going to go be with some drink company and I don't never seen this before. Like that's not me. I've never seen them in the store. I've never seen them at a Target or a Ross or nothing. But, you know, they came to me because I got a $1.5 million contract for them. That's another thing that I feel like a lot of athletes do is they just want the end result of it besides having something come towards them authentic to who they are. So with social media, I'm always just like, look, I don't like it, but I'm learning a lot hearing you guys because it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense on why my generation is so inclined with what it, you know, how can I be this person? But in reality, you know, I'm on social media being this person, but then I have like this money in behind me and all this stuff. And it's like, you're overwhelmed and it gets exhausting and you have so many things that come into play and you're stuck. And I think that's how a lot of like my generation athletes are feeling and they don't know what to do and they try to fit themselves into certain areas and they try to do this and do that because they're not educating themselves or finding their community or, you know, like doing all those things when it comes to them just focusing on social media. I've never seen so many of my like old teammates be on Snapchat, post so many Snapchat stories. Snapchat, you apparently get paid for every story you put on.
Oh, snap. Wow.
Snap.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm being so
commercial
serious. Like Snapchat, I kid you not. I'm like, you know, Snapchat was so cool when we were younger. You know, you get the dog filter, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm like, yo, why am I seeing your whole day in your life? Like, hey guys, here I am going to this store, eating this food. And I like looked and I was like I asked somebody, I was like, so are you guys getting like paid for this? And they're like, yeah, so this is what you do. And I was like, makes sense. So now it's like came into this is how I live my life through social media. Instead of trying to just be, you know, hey guys, I'm here. This is me in person. It's more of like, okay, yeah, I'm at this, you know, basketball game or I'm over here on this train or, you know, it's just, that's why I don't like it. It's just not giving what it needs to give.
Also, I always think about when I see those videos, you see them like walking down the aisles. Like, how much time does it take to set your tripod up?
Exactly.
And then walk to the camera
The
and
airport
run back
ones
and turn it
get
off?
me.
Like, are people watching you while you do that? Like, you at the grocery
Recording
store?
your day in the life.
Like it like makes no, like the airport one gets me. Like, how are you setting your phone up to get your ticket to somehow make it seem like you put your bag on the weigher when I know in reality you probably didn't do that. You had your friend do it. Then somehow record yourself with your phone sitting in the chair on the plane. Like there's so many tools now that I'm just like it doesn't make sense and it's too much time.
I mean, social media is a wild, wild world. Like, I feel like every day there's a new app that's trying to erupt and say, come join us here. We'll, you know, throw this amount of money at you. But at the end of the day, though, too, it's not going anywhere. So how do we leverage it as the tool that it is and still engaging? Because I know, Fee, you run your social, as I'm sure a lot of us do here, but you run your social and you take great pride in that. And you don't partner with just anyone. You want to partner with brands that you truly believe in. How do you make sure that you can still be Fee and still engage with people? You know, they comment, they take the time to comment on your post. You want to take the time to comment back. How do you do that, but then also protect your peace?
I think it's hard. I think like it's really easy to get wrapped up in it. And I'm not naturally like a social media person either. For me, it is really exhausting as well. But you have like you understand that you have to be a brand presence to make money. And I feel like I too have just kind of learned that. So I try to, it's like a conscious effort for me every time I have to post. I'm like, oh, I haven't posted in a while. Let me try to find some pictures or can you take a picture of me so I can post this on social media? Like for me, it's embarrassing. Like I don't like taking pictures. That process is just like really exhausting for me. So I think it's just like a constant thing that I have to think about. But to that point, like when I partner with brands, I want to make sure it's worth it because I don't like doing it, but I know it's like a necessary thing that you have to do. I want to make sure that I'm like supporting people who back what I believe in, who are things that I actually use, who like O-Pill is something that I'm really passionate about. They give free birth, or not free, they give over-the-counter birth control, especially in states where like things are happening politically that you don't know what's going to happen. So like women's health is something I'm passionate about. So partnering with things that, again, are really authentic to you, I think just makes it a lot easier to kind of do things. We all have to do things we don't want to do, like for your job, whatever it is, even if you love your job. I don't really want to be in the gym every single day, but I want to be a good athlete. So you have to do things that you don't want to do. And so for me, that's kind of how I think about it. If I'm going to do this, it has to be worth it. So I want to partner with people who are aligned with what things I like and what I support.
Absolutely. And I think that social media too has shifted, especially with athletes, but really with any, fields, is the aspirational versus inspirational. Before we would, go to the store and buy a huge poster of Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and put it on the wall, or like get the magazine, rip it out, put it on the wall. And we didn't know what they did before or after they took those photos in. Nowadays, you're getting behind the scenes. Oh, yeah. And so when that, then that goes on the front cover of something, you're like, oh, well, I felt like I was there. Like I saw he ate like a cheeseburger right before he went on and filmed that. Like I saw that. So it's so interesting because we do need to be able to peel back the layers, because no longer do we look at someone and say, I want to be you. It's like, no, I see you crushing it. How do I do what I need to do to crush it in my own lane? So how do y'all inspire on your social versus have people aspire to you?
I'll jump in. Oh, so you go right. I just talked.
No, okay. You need to get some touches, man. We got to feed you.
No. I think just being really honest, like, about how much work it takes to get there. Like, I still get questions every time, like, oh, you had a daughter. She's almost 3 now. Like, oh, you had a daughter. How did you come back? I'm like, it was hard. It took a lot of hard work. Like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And so I think just showing people that if you want to be good at anything, it doesn't have to be sports. It takes work and sacrifice. And I think that's what, like, aspire people see. I want that. I'm never going to get it. Like, how can they do that and I can't? They worked really hard. Like, I sacrificed a lot of time away from my family growing up, like sleepovers, things you want to do with your friends. Like, this is a lifelong sacrifice that I've made to get here. After having my daughter, I thought I wasn't going to play the next season. Like, I haven't talked about that a lot, but the toll it took on my body was so hard. The hardest I've ever worked. That off season rehab, I was in there every single day just trying to get back to play the next season. So again, that's time away from my like brand new baby that I want to be with. That's time that I have to spend in New York when I don't live there normally. So we had to move there for like rehab. So it takes a lot of sacrifice to do those things. So I just try to be really open with that so people don't like idolize you. You know what I mean? You want to inspire people, but you don't want them to idolize you. I want you to know that like I'm a real person just like you. I happen to have gotten the opportunity to be a professional athlete. Like, yes, I had the talent, but the people that got me there along the way also, if I didn't have those opportunities, I wouldn't be in the place that I am now. For example, like my brother is just as talented as I am, but he didn't have the same opportunities that I did to play football in our small town. I happen to have opportunities to play basketball in our small town. So it's really about that. So I try to be, again, just really open with like the road that it takes to get there to you only see the success, but you don't see all the stuff that takes to get there.
I think a big thing too is connecting, I think, with the fans on social as well. I think it sometimes goes beyond just posting something and then, liking a comment. I think sometimes, again, this takes time to do, but when you're interacting with comments that fans or followers have left, and I think, when I'm not saying you have to do this for every single post, but I think sometimes when you leave thoughtful comments or answers to questions that they ask about your recovery and doing that. What was it like, in the World Cup final? What was it like being at the Olympics, cheering on, all your teammates? And you take those moments to engage. I think that's part of how people at home feel more connected and feel like it's real. And they're getting to know you personally versus just what a lot of people are, like to your point, trying to put out there to paint this perfect image of what my life is instead of the realness. And it goes back to being vulnerable and admitting when things are hard. Everybody's a real human being that goes through struggles. So I think that there are tools within social media that I think help inspire based on our realness and our interaction.
And I think also just understanding you can separate your lives. Mm-hmm. I learned that from not just, having the greatest of all time in my sport be my best friend, but understanding that she went through a lot. I witnessed it. I'd been through 4 Olympic cycles and only got to compete at 2. But it definitely is something to understand that you can separate your life. You can separate the fact that you are human, that you do go through struggles, and you do, I went through a lot of family issues. I had a bunch of things that I was still trying to cope, but the only thing that you were seeing at that time was my sport and thinking that, oh, the expectation and doing this and doing that, that's all you're seeing. But it does go back to the fact that just because I'm not showing you that side of me all the time doesn't mean that I'm not trying to inspire you to be the greatest that you need to be within your dream or within your path. And yes, there are tools, there are ways that you can kind of navigate what you're trying to put out into the world. But I think how I had to navigate who my audience was, I had to show them this is me. I'm going to give you, hey guys, I'm not doing too well. I'm going to separate myself from social media, give my time, because this is something that I'm actually going through. I'm going through a lot. I hope you guys can understand. And do people? No. Majority of everybody's like, oh, she's lazy, she's this, da, all that stuff. But I think just still being able to show that side is also the biggest thing. But I also can say, separating the two, I learned that.
It's so hard because you're right. You're not obligated to share anything with anybody.
Nope.
But it feels like we are. I think we feel pressure to do that. That's part of my job
figures.
now.
We're in the limelight 24/7. We're constantly in the camera. I'm sorry, TMZ could be following us anywhere. You know what I mean? But it is true. We're constantly in the limelight. So yes, that obligation is, oh, this is what I'm doing. Da, da, da. And it's how a lot of celebrities now, there have been things now all of a sudden, for instance, the platform, the Shade Room. Shade Room knows everything. How do we know this? I don't know. But they know exactly everything. But it's because everybody nowadays talks about, okay, this is what happened. This is how it's going to play out. This is who I'm going to go, fight if I have to. Those type of things. And so it definitely is, I feel like, an obligation now to where you have to be this is what's going to happen.
Do you remember a time when, Angelina Jolie, you never saw her, but if she showed up in the Milan, film festival, everybody had to be there on the red carpet because that was the only time you were going to see her.
But I'm not convinced that you can't still pull that off now.
Say more.
The mysterious,
even if you're not
mystique.
LeBron or...
Right. I mean, so if I take this out of the sporting context
Beyonce
fast,
still does it?
I say the biggest star of 2024 is Kendrick Lamar. He don't give you nothing but music, right? I feel bad when I hear people talk about feeling the obligation because it totally makes sense, right? It's a totally valid opinion. But I believe that there is so much stuff that people are flooded with on such a regular basis, hardly anybody's going to notice if you just don't do something for a little while. And even if they do notice, I don't know how much time people have. It sounds like they really care and they sounds like they're really invested, but I don't know how much energy people have to keep up as much. And so I think for a lot of people, there probably is an option to fall back a little more than it feels like in the moment of it, right? That you can decide that there are going to be boundaries that you put in place and what you are going to do and what you're not going to do. I think people could probably get away with more of it because my question has truly been more and more, and I say this as somebody who used to be a very active social media participant that isn't anymore, is how much there is to gain anymore from that stuff, right? It feels like it's the baseline level that they tell you that you have to do, but I'm not sure. I think there are a lot of people who are really out here thriving who are not in those spaces and you just don't think about it, but somebody comes and tells you, hey, you got to do this because da-da-da, and it makes perfect sense why you would think, but I'm not sure. I think there was a time where you could really come up off of social media presence. Jared McCain right now is really coming up because they only made one of those in the NBA, right? It stands out and he's balling, but he has become really big off of it. He's really good at it, right? It's not just that he's just putting stuff up. Yeah. And so I would hope for the sake of the people involved that there will be a movement of people to figure out that you could probably fall back a little bit. Because if y'all get some solidarity amongst yourselves and say y'all going to stop being animals in the zoo, then there ain't going to be no zoo no more,
I think as women it's different. Because as women, if we disappear, right, we go off of social media or something like that, it's, they start giving these negative comments, or the biggest thing is she's pregnant. Or this, that, and the other.
Fair.
So I think there's a difference when it comes to male and female when you have that platform, because you never know. Especially if you posted something, hey, I'm with so and so, and then next 2 days later you're MIA, then there starts this whole this line and this train of, well, what happened to her type deal. But if a male did that, I'm not trying to be sexist or anything, but if a male did that, it would be oh, he's fine. he's great, right? It's like with anybody who gets divorced. Oh, he's fine. But then the female is like, oh, you know, maybe she did this, you know? So I think that's where it's kind of hard when it does come to taking yourself away from social media as a female, because there's always going to be something. The moment you get back on, those comments are going to flood and be like, oh, well, so what did you do? Da, 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 you know? That's why it's like just that difference.
Yeah, I understand you. I asked this question sincerely. It's like, how much of that, and I think this is just a society-wide question, is just how much of this do we actually have to indulge? Because in the end, like, it's dismissive to be like, it's just a comment because I know it's not that simple, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, for all of us, it's kind of a question of, okay, they're going to be doing this. The ones and zeros are going to have this thing to say. Do we have to be bound by it? And I imagine that has to be incredibly stressful. Just like I say, hearing it verbalized has been very interesting to me. Like the idea of feeling like you were obligated to give people these little kernels. And God, like to me, I'm like, no, you're not. But that's easy for me to say.
I think it's also too, it's like, if you are going to use social media as a way to connect to fans and to sell things, you can't only pop out when you're
that's the thing.
Hey guys, my C-Suite 21 collection's dropping, and then I'm going to go MIA because I don't really want to tell you about none of my life. I feel like it's almost building, when you talked about connections, it's like fans buy into the brand. Like fans will strictly purchase off of like, I'm buying this because I like her. I want her business to be successful. You take away those kernels of why they like you and who you are, even how simple it is. Like almost every morning I write like, good morning, good people on Twitter. It's basic, but to your point, I respond to like 10 people every morning. I got regulars that say good morning every morning now. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a community. It's a community of good mornings where it's like, good morning, good people. What we doing? Like, you know, like, and it's that little simple thing that I don't really have to do it. You're right. But it's also like, there has to be a give and take. It's like there's a lot of things I don't really want to do. Kind of to your point, it's like there's a lot of things I don't want to do, but that little bit, how much is that going to, like, there is a gain, I think, on doing just those little things. Or even if it is, like, I'm kind of agreeing, like, I don't know if y'all seen the Netflix show Black Mirror, but it kind of makes fun of how far are we going to go with this social media stuff to where, like, your social media is your currency almost. Like, it's how one of the episodes showed. And it's like, I don't know to the point of how fast we're going to get there, but I am going to keep making deposits. Like, I'm going to keep making deposits on social media, and I'm going to keep on connecting with different people every day because we do have to use it. Is an avenue. Like, where else are you going to be doing business if you're not doing it on social media? Like, where is those other platforms now to do business, like straight to consumer? Like, where can you go?
And it's also important to remember there were times, like, even my parents would say, do you know how lucky you are that you have direct to consumer? Like, if I had this platform, I could have sold anything. Exactly. Like, my dad used to say all this while, I'm like, calm down. But it's true. But to our point, and to Jordan, your point specifically, and to the point of exhaustion, hope, is we're in control of our social media. So we can change and evolve. And I'm actually really curious about Justin because...
I'm trying to stay out of this.
No, Oh, I'm bringing you right in. Social media, when you were playing... wasn't really popping yet, was it?
Not really, no.
And then
you just called them old.
Sorry. Damn it, Jesse. Okay, but wait, time out. I don't follow Goldman Sachs, but I'm sure their Instagram is not popping, right? Because it's not, okay.
The reason why I didn't want to get in this conversation is because it's going to sound like me patting myself on the back. But
nope, let's pat.
I heard everything you guys said, and I agree as far as the fact that social media is exhausting. There's this pressure of these continual kernels every time. I just didn't subscribe to that. And I think that one of the reasons why I don't feel those pressures is because, like you said, I work for Goldman Sachs. There's no $100 million client that I have to go see that's going to care about me posting on Twitter or Facebook or anything else. And that's just the nature of the beast as far as the transition that I made. So I didn't necessarily want to jump in this conversation because that was more of a singular thing. But like, I was going to ask the question around like, do you guys think the pressure that you feel or the pressure that some people might feel in social media is predicated on the fact that the transition from your sport or the things that you're interested in developing a paycheck is because it's in that media, it's in that business, it's in that, that branding, marketing sphere that you need social media for. Because like for me, I don't feel those pressures because
it doesn't impact your success.
Day-to-day. But I definitely understand what you're saying because I obviously used to be in that world a little bit more than I am now. I still have branding things that I do for previous, still existing opportunities I had with branding companies or companies that I used to be branded by. So but again, it's hard for me to verbalize what I'm trying to say here because I listened to a podcast. Rich Klein was talking about teaching Kevin Durant about the fact that he didn't have to go say that on a commercial. Like all of us, none of us are Kevin Durant, and like you don't have that power walking into that room to be able to do that. But I was thinking about that from the perspective of you don't have to say those things. Like at the end of the day, what I feel like social media allows us to be is authentic. It allows us to customize the experience that we want to have with the interface. And I just grew up in a world where I don't really. Again, I was about to say something like a locker room term. I don't know if I can say on this air, but
Try it.
I don't give a damn about anybody else's feelings towards how I live my life and how I choose to give you access to my life, right? If I put something out there that's authentic to me and you don't like it, God bless you.
That's
I
how
actually
am.
don't mind social media, by the way.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all.
I'm one of the I really don't mind it because like I give them what I want to give them. Like I treat
Exactly.
social media like like I might be MIA for a couple days and I might be on Twitter all day for a couple days. Like I'm live
100%.
tweeting the game because I want to see. I'm watching the same thing. We watching it as a family. Like I'm like, what we watching today? Like are we like because as I'm watching the game, I know somebody's having the same thoughts I am. So I'm watching it with my family in the house and we all saying the same thing. So I go on Twitter and I'm like, boom, there it go. I knew everybody. I knew it. Like so it's almost like a sample subject too there where you can soundbite things off of, hey, what y'all think about this? Like, or what you think about that? I feel like social media, like to your point, we control it. Like, so it's like I get, and to a side note, I get hate messages every single day. It's the nature of how I opted out for social justice, what I stand for, kind of all those things. Like every single day I get like death, rape, all of that every single day. Like it's in my mentions, but it's just like I just scroll past those. I'm keep it moving. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I know that I'm an athlete, so I have thick skin. So I'm not saying the people that struggle with that. I understand when they do struggle with that because it's like, dang, right now I post a happy birthday and they enter my birthday post. I'm like, take a day off. It's my birthday. Like, come on, man. But I know some people can't get past that. But I really, to your point, I don't care. Like if you're saying all this stuff, you're DMing me, they even find the links in my bio and they email it. It's like, I really.
That says more about you. It's like,
Yeah,
what's wrong with
Agreed.
you?
What are y'all?
That's why I didn't want to
exactly.
actually engage because I was saying like that's more of a Justin Tuck answer, not a broad answer, right? But like I agree with you 100%. Like make it what you want it to be. Like I think the tools that we have at our disposal now in this space allows you to make the experience what you truly want to make the experience. And I might be wrong from a broad perspective, but I know it works for me.
No, because it's hard though. It's hard for people if you're already going through something and then to get online and here goes somebody else. Like I understand the concept of like life is already hard for everybody. I don't care who it is. And then you get online and there's people just constantly like they talk about your family, they talk about your appearance. So I understand that it's not easy to brush off. But I was saying like for me personally,
Yeah, for me.
I'm just not rolling. Like I just have a different mindset. Like I'm like toxic positivity to a T. It's like I really don't have time for that negativity.
But it's interesting, Renee and Justin, your perspective from where you guys both stand currently with your jobs versus two current athletes, Fee and Jordan, right? I think it's also really important to note, like, there's time for evolution of your Instagram. I say Instagram because I feel like that's like the main one still as of right now. But you can have a period where you're off it for a couple months and then you can, get back on and be like, I'm going to go hard on this, or like, okay, I want to start building my brand partnership. So I know I need to start posting and so I can show these brands that are going to ask me for all my insights, how many people are liking, what's your demographic, all of that. But it's also about knowing your audience. And so from someone who, let's see if I can do it, who played on the field,
Right.
who analyzes players on the field,
Right.
who hosts people playing the field. You're welcome.
I see what you did there.
See what I did there?
I see what
Nailed
you did
it.
there.
And with the Food Network, you're on so many different platforms. You have a wide array of people that tune into Jesse Palmer and are buying your clothes now. So how have you evolved?
For me, it's the common. I think it's like the theme of this whole conversation for the last hour and 10 minutes now. But it's just authenticity. I think whoever I am in all of wearing all those different hats is just true to me. Football obviously is my wheelhouse. That's my biggest passion in the world as a player, now as someone that analyzes it and calls games. That's my dojo. Like that's where I feel the most comfortable. On shows like The Bachelor or on Food Network, like I'm just passionate about people, and I just like being around people and learning about them and being around them. But I'm so conscious all the time about really being true to myself, saying things I would say, reacting in ways that I think I should react, not what I think people at home think I should react. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, and I think, you know, to kind of connect it all together, you know, I think one of my biggest fears is just being, is not being authentic, is being inauthentic, because I think people can tell. On social media, I think they can tell sometimes when
People know a phony.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
There ain't been one phony that people ain't figured out eventually.
I
Right.
believe it.
Especially for someone who's had the longevity that you had in
Right.
in these.
Short term, you can get away
short
from
term
that.
you get away.
Long term,
You've been doing this for a long time.
But I think,
People,
and maybe I thank you. But maybe that's part of why, because people are like, he's consistent. This is just who he is, and different types of television. It's just, I really am the same. I hope I'm the same person all throughout as I am in social media, as I'm at home with my wife and my daughter. It's just that to me has been the most important things. And with branding and partnerships in business, it's about that too. And you
It's
were
the
saying
fundamental
earlier,
thing of a brand, is what you describe, is the consistency of it,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
I see this name a half a world away from my house. I know what this means.
Right. Yeah. And just like you said, you know, products that you use or things that you believe in and aligning yourself. I just don't think you can ever go wrong if you do that. And I think there are times on social media where if we do pull back or you are just being authentic, I think the right brands sometimes find us. You know, instead of us, you know, always feeling like, I got to push this, I got to push that because I want this dealership and this sponsorship and this endorsement. You know, I think sometimes just being true to yourself, I think sometimes attracts the right people to you, and it's all very organic that way. I think that's really, really important.
That's huge. And so we've talked quite a bit about our past. Let's move more towards like the present and the future, right? NIL, everyone's favorite thing, name, image, and likeness. What do we love about it? What do we hate about it?
I love that players can get paid.
Yes.
Definitely love that.
That's long overdue. I hate that college football has now become free agency. And you're essentially now.
Is it even
It's not
free
even
agency
free
though?
agency.
Because if I sign a player for 4 years, I don't have to re-recruit that player every
Right.
year.
Well, yeah.
But don't forget the other part. Sometimes they ain't got the money. It is just it's handshake deals on paper, right? Like maybe they got the money. You know what I'm talking about, Jesse.
exactly.
Sometimes you got the money. Sometimes you don't got the money. Sometimes you tell a dude you're going to pay him $10 million, then he got to go to another school because y'all say we ain't got the money. It's no rules.
But here's also the additive to that. Like I feel bad for the coaches now, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. And that's never been the case in my life. Not one time in my life. But think about it this, right? All right, I went to Notre Dame. Coach Freeman, I'll just use him as an example. If you think about it, you have to recruit a kid. Whenever you start recruiting, let's say you start recruiting him at 16. You got to recruit him from 16 until he commits. When he commits, typically you're done recruiting, right? Not anymore, because he can commit to you, and if he feels like, oh, you didn't show him no love until he got there, he can decommit, go somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. So you got to recruit this kid from 16 till he gets to your campus. Oh, it don't stop there. You got to recruit him for however long he stays at your campus, because guess what? Because of the portal, if he feels as though you haven't continued to show him love, he can just willy-nilly just walk away.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Not only do you have to recruit that kid from whenever you started recruiting him until he graduates or goes to the league or whatever his end product is in your school, you got to recruit every other school, because if he leaves, you got to be like Deion and be like, hey, we're going in the portal to get this other kid from San Jose State or whatever it may be. So I just don't understand how coaches even can coach anymore, because they're constantly recruiting.
I had said the same thing.
They're recruiting 24/7. They're recruiting kids that are on their campus. They're recruiting kids that are in high school. They're recruiting kids on other campuses.
And heaven forbid you have a kid blow up and have a big year, especially if you're a smaller school.
Goodbye.
Well, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, like Alabama and Ohio State, they're on
coming.
the phone with him now.
Dude,
yesterday.
I can't give you any specifics, but I just had this conversation with a player and his family and a university, and he's about to make a lot more money than what he was making because he had a phenomenal year. And you just said the name, Alabama. Some other schools were calling him and his mom and his dad, and their price went up, so our price had to go up.
I mean,
that's crazy.
There's a balance, and like the one thing I never liked as a player was, I'm going to commit to this head coach, and I'm committing 4 or 5 years of my life to go live in this city and play my career. That coach can bounce whenever he wants.
And that's what made all this possible.
Exactly.
Was that they had to get rid of the 1-year transfer rule, which was necessary. That's what slowed everything down, was that you had to sit out for a year. But the coaches kept dipping for money, and it became morally impossible to justify that. And so now it's the Wild Wild West. But that's football, basketball. Like, I'm curious. I don't know as much myself about how that's affecting women's sports at this point because the money isn't quite as big. And I think the money becomes a lot more important there because we're talking about a lot of people on the men's side who could go get some money later in a way that's not guaranteed if you're playing women's sports. Like, now there's the idea that you can get some real bread in this moment where for so many women, they are most marketable as college players. That's a huge game change. Unfortunately, it is chaos because there's no plan on how to do this because they were so afraid of paying players that they kicked that can down the road. Congress will save us, everything else. And then they looked up and nobody has any idea how to do it.
I mean, I know a few schools. I'm not going to put names out there that have all of a sudden just been on the bars of all bars, not just in my sport, but in other sports. But I feel like it's only just making one. NIL is cool, yes. I'm still in it. I have 2 more years at my school. It's cool and all, but at the same time, I wish I'm old. I know it don't make sense.
What would you have done with $1 million?
Let her finish.
Hold on.
I would have bought a lot of Abercrombie.
I was trying not to even think about me in Notre Dame in 2005 with $1 million.
Wait.
South Bend, Indiana with $1 million? But go ahead. That's just my brain just went.
Poor Jordan.
Wow.
You could have retired.
Y'all would've never knew me.
It's time for me to go. We have 10 minutes left. Bye. No, but I can say I think I never cared about money, just in general. For me, going pro was not anything that before they changed the rule. I was like, you know what, I'm about to go to college. I verbally committed in 8th grade.
Wow.
Why did I do that? It was a dream school of mine. I wanted to go
You're talented. They don't recruit people in 8th grade.
Now they don't. They can't. It's a rule. But before the rules changed, you were allowed to recruit whenever, right?
Wow.
So in 8th grade, I verbally committed. So like you were saying, you have to, recruit until they sign. So I signed, yada, yada, yada. But one thing that I had told myself was no matter what I was doing with my sport or with my life, I was going to go to college because I recruited myself, my life, to a school that I wanted to compete for. Now that the NIL changed, it was like, oh, okay, I get a double whammy. I get to be able to go pro and also be the quote-unquote face of my school, which I don't think there's truly like a face of a school because there's so many talented athletes that go in and out of that school that have been the faces of the school. It just doesn't make sense, but quote-unquote get to be the face of my school now. But when it comes to certain things, now I feel like it's just an outlet. I feel like it's just something that, oh, you want money for this? Here, I'll take it because you're the face of the school. Or you want, I feel like it's no longer like a hardworking era of things. I feel like it's kind of just been given. As a gymnast, it may be different for women's basketball. I don't know how that works, but as gymnast, I feel like now it's like you're working, but you're not. It's just different, like the dynamic and the the pressure. You can now be like, okay, I'm gonna do 1 year here. Like this is what I did. I did 1 year, then I went and did pro. Then I came back, did another year, and I feel like that's just it's crazy, but I had a dream of mine since I have the ability. But it's like I feel like now there's just like a different outlet when it does come to the gymnastics side of things that I feel like I feel. I don't know how it is for basketball, but that's just kind of.
I kind of feel like I also think NIL is great and like what I would have done with that money, not the $1,500 stipend a semester that we got. Like, that would have been awesome. But also like there has to be rules because I feel like it's taking the purity of the sport away. Like
bingo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait, and I'm
100%.
so surprised to hear that from somebody like you. But I do want to ask, what are the team dynamics like for, players that do have NIL deals and then the players who don't. For me, and I talk with my husband about this all the time, he was a former Husky, Division I football player, played in the NFL.
Husky, like a Yukon Husky?
The only Husky
Washington.
that matters.
Washington.
Washington.
West Coast.
Washington.
We were having a great time. Whew, glad y'all are over here.
Escalated quickly.
We feel pretty like dinosaurs, prehistoric in our thought process. And it's not dissimilar to how social media came about and kind of broke up our team dynamics on the national team, players, being distracted and caring too much about that and not enough about what was going on the bus on the way to a game or whatever. And now you have this NIL, and these college athletes are very young, I mean, we're not in our 20s, 30s. We're very young and impressionable, and you want to build up that team culture in college. That's what sets the tone for everything. You want that college experience, that team experience, a positive experience. And then you bring in, we used to all have our Nike cleats given to us, and now somebody gets a particular deal and they're wearing the baller cleats while everybody else is in their Reeboks. And it changes things. And so my question to you guys is, do you feel that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Not within my, because I, as UCLA, like, I have not done that, because how I see it is very much we're as a team and this is what we're doing. I went to my campus in a way of showing, just because I'm a 2-time Olympian doesn't mean I'm still a college. Like, that does not mean anything. I'm still a college student. I'm going to school. I'm doing everything that you're doing. So don't, exclude me for anything that, thank you. I appreciate it. You see me on my scooter. Woohoo. Hi, nice to meet you. But I don't do that with my team personally. Now, have I seen it with other teams? 100%. Now, do I think that is, I feel bad for everybody else, because it's like, if you're going to do that, why can't you give it to your whole team so they feel included type deal? That's how I see it personally, because NIL, I wish it was something that was sooner. I feel like all pro athletes that from 2016 or even before that, literally, I felt like NIL should have just been a thing in general, because there were so many amazing athletes that did go to amazing schools and lifted up that school in a lot of ways. So that's how I see NIL, but I have seen it through social media that has happened.
Listen, when NIL first happened, I was in this mode of like you just said, Jesse, man, $1 million. But when I think about it, right?
You'd have been at the library. You'd have been the linebacker.
I'd have paid more money to get better tutors. The linebacker. That's so funny. It's very similar to how I think about Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor and all these guys who came before me in the football side. They made the product that is the NFL better when they were there. Mm-hmm. So that guys like myself made more money than they made. Now you got guys in the league now, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns on the Giants now making more money than I made when I was there. So I don't get in this world of man, what if? Because at the end of the day, I'm sure there was Hall of Fame players that built the NFL way before I even picked up a pigskin, and I was living off of their backs, vice versa now. So when I think about this NIL money, I honestly don't think we're giving these kids enough credit, because they've grown up like this. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have had the ability. It would have been so brand new to me. I don't think I would have been able to handle it. I think they're going to be okay handling it. There's still going to be some things that
change the nature of it, though.
It's definitely going to change the nature. But everything else around these kids are changing too. How we got recruited and how we thought about what schools to go to and why we went to them, that no longer exists. So I think it's still in line in a lot of ways with what their day-to-day is anyway. The loyalty around, hey, I love this coach. I went to the University of Notre Dame thinking I was going to be there for 4 years. I don't think none of these kids think like that. If it happens, genuinely happens, then they would be like, okay, cool. But I don't think any of them signed that letter of intent thinking that hey, I'm occupying this one scholarship, this one school for 4 years No, I think they're going in and saying, this is the place I want to be now. And if something changes,
It's a year-to-year.
where we are,
Wild,
where we
though.
are.
It's like, how do you think that's going to affect, like, in the future, boosters? Because you know that diehard college fandom that you have?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, they
How is that gonna
fans are
affect
gone.
they just keep pony. The boosters are a different animal, man.
No, I was going to say that's actually going to help.
This is their
in
time.
the future?
I
Like, there's
guarantee-
no loyalty to your school.
All right,
Oh,
let's get to the finances, right? Let's get to the world of which I really live in. I know every million and above check that goes to Notre Dame. Those checks have increased.
So you're trying to get the kids.
I know how the Big 12 thinks about boosters, and every school in the Big 12 thinks about boosters. All that stuff has increased because now they are actually they're really owning a piece of those products, those football, in most cases the football, basketball teams, and it's almost like being able to put your name on their jerseys because they could go tell their friends at the country club, hey, I helped buy that kid.
This is their time to shine.
I
now they
guarantee you, they will not feel that
like
at all.
now they don't have to do it with cash; they can do it with checks,
Yeah,
right? Like, you know, like I mean,
and they can be very direct with where that money
this
goes.
is very much so like, oh, now I can buy my weed at the dispensary with a debit card. That makes my life a whole lot easier. I might even pay a little bit of extra money. I ain't got to go run and get this cash and meet you at the corner no more. I can go right in the store.
Yeah.
This is their time. Like SMU making that move to the ACC
Holy smokes.
and saying we don't need the revenues from the conference because the boosters will pony it up. This is the day they have been waiting on, that they could trick all this money off on all these dudes and tell everybody around them that they are personally, imagine saying, I am responsible for my school winning their first
You know
national
how many
championship in
Ferraris
50
and
years.
Lambos was outside of Notre Dame Stadium when this NIL? Think about that.
Yeah.
Notre Dame.
In the snow.
The most.
They're making
the most
uninformed decisions.
is-
Yeah.
I mean, listen,
You know,
it's
also-
snowing there now.
Insuring an
now.
18-year-old to drive a Lamborghini, by the way,
That
is
part.
the setting money on fire.
Right.
But you know-
but what's to me, what is the thing we were talking about before about going to school? It's not a 4-year decision; it's a 40-year decision.
Yeah.
That's game, but it's also true, right? Like if you're doing it right, that's the best play. I'm glad the cats are able to get the money and the ladies are able to get the money, but I do worry about that part. Like that is not something you should make a decision on college based on money. You shouldn't go somewhere you can't afford, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to act like money is completely irrelevant.
Yep.
But man, it's a long play. Like that's every time I see these guys bounce from school to school, I'm like, no, stay wherever you are 4 years and live on scholarship for life. You'll always be able to come back. You'll always be able to get a job. You'll always be able to do all these things if these things don't go the way you think they're going to go down the line. You're getting upfront payment right now, but if you transfer to 3 schools, they don't give a damn about you and none of them.
None of them. I actually think it's going to help the leagues better and more. You're going to get a more matured kid coming in. I don't think you. I actually think I don't even know what the number is as far as like how long, a kid stays in school before he decides to defer for the leagues. But like I guarantee that number's going to go up. Because if I was making $1 million a year, why am I going to the NFL?
No, the draft is about to be a different animal. These cats are sticking around.
If I could make, I mean, some of these kids are making $2, $3, $4, $5 million to stay on campus. Like I just saw Mr. Sanders buy his old lineman a Maybach.
Okay.
Crazy.
I mean,
Well,
really?
Okay.
I'm
devastated right now. We have to put a pin in the NIL conversation just because I would be remiss if we did not talk about one last thing about the future, right? Sure. We got to talk about the fact that the two lovely people next to me, Jessie Palmer and Renee Montgomery, just launched clothing brands relatively recently. We got Jay Palmer, and we got C-Suite 21. From athlete to C-suite.
Yes.
And that sounds better than Jay Palmer.
Okay, you know what?
Nice ring to it, right?
A lot better.
And Jordan, you just announced that you wrote a book named "I'm That Girl."
Period.
Period. Coming out when?
It comes out in March of 2025.
And how did you come up with the name?
So I'm That Girl, basically, I'm pretty sure everybody knows the song from Beyonce's album. I don't use it in a cocky way, though. I realized throughout my whole ever since I was 7, my time frame of doing gymnastics, I've conquered so many things. So I use it as an affirmation.
Love
and
it.
the affirmation I get to tell myself every day is, you know what? You are that girl. You get to wake up. You get to do things. You get to inspire the younger generation. And basically what this book is about is just the life story of who I am as a person, but also, what just happened and everything, leading up to who I became being a 2-time Olympian and all that stuff. So it's kind of just like a nice little memoir of who I am. And honestly, just like the love and resilience that I've been able to put out into the world and also accept myself.
That is so beautiful, and I cannot wait to read it. Oh my gosh. And then last but not least, Fee, talk to us about being the co-founder of Unrivaled. And I don't know if the world knows how huge and transformational this is. So tell us what's coming out in January.
Yes, first game January 17th in Miami. Yeah, it's a 3-on-3 league. Our premise was just like the best women's basketball players in the world playing against each other every night. Yeah, we're super excited. We have the highest average team salary in women's sports.
Yep.
All of our players have equity in the league. And it's just going to be a really great experience, a really deep dive into the athletes, like who they are, building their brands, which we talked about ad nauseum today about how important that is. And yeah, it's just going to be a great product for people to watch and then also for us to play. I think it's going to be really entertaining.
Well, speaking of entertaining, I was highly entertained this entire time, and I can't believe how quickly 90 minutes comes and goes. I know, but hopefully this is a springboard for future conversations and more brand building, and I just want to say thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun.
Thank
To the
you.
hostess.
Woo!
Come on, man.
Stop it.
Period.
Stop that right now.